Welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz. Joining me, Kevin Howard, author, and political extraordinaire like myself, and Beth Burrows, another political extraordinaire like myself. And we're bringing voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. Guys, hello. This was not easy, but we're there.
Exactly. I
Hi
thought I
there.
thought I thought Tulsi Gabbard had something to do with
I
with with
They're
affecting
ambushing
us.
us, Kevin. This is a good sign. They're ambushing us. They're hearing our voices and they're saying we better stifle these guys. Look at
Exactly.
that
We can't.
cutie with Beth. Hi
I
there.
know it. Oh my gosh. I tell you, is hey Beth, is your dog a husky? Because it looks very much like my dog.
Yeah, I have two huskies. One is blind, and the other one is
Oh,
just a pain in the tush.
This one's
yeah.
blind, right?
The one down here is blind, but
Yeah.
she's just
Wow.
loud. They're brother and sister. She just gets in these moods, and she will not let me go. I mean, she just will not leave me alone. She's been scratching at the door, and now
We'll
she's
leave her
like,
on.
I'm
She's
in.
the star of the show.
Yeah, she just left. She was like, yeah, she's not gonna give me a
The
cookie.
minute
I'm out of here.
the minute Coach Trippy said she's the star of the show.
Oh, she knows exactly. Hopefully Charlie can get on in
Did
because
anybody hear from Charlie lately? Does anyone
Charlie
since
says
this?
we are in. Oh no,
He's
you
in?
said that.
yeah, I was sending a message to Charlie that we are in, and hopefully he can get in. Is the try okay? So you sent the text, Beth, that says try re-downloading Zoom,
Yeah,
right?
I had to
So
re-download it. Yeah, and then install some kind of update.
let's see real
Oh,
quick.
I'm gonna have to do that. I didn't do that yet.
Coach,
And
could
it
you
actually
take
has new features and stuff. It's great.
yeah
Cool.
new AI features and everything else?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, is
it's pretty
that what it
slick.
is that I haven't done a re-download? I'll have to do that.
Or an update. Yeah.
Yeah.
Update.
They might be blocking the old not supporting the old software and stuff like that. But coach, you got me all stoked up, and you talked about I apparently our dear leaders cabinet meeting, beauty contest, love fest
Love
has
Fest. Love Fest. 3 hours and 20 minutes. 3 hours and 7 minutes. Let me not overstate it. 3 hours and 7 minutes. They were revering and praising, and I kind of felt like it was Kim Jong Un walking into a North Korean Politburo. They were all going, "Yay,
he is
yay, we love this
well,
guy." You ever see him stand at attention and clap simultaneously when Kim Jong Un walks into a room?
Like
And
trained seals.
that's right. And
trained
anyone
seals.
and watch out what happens to anyone who doesn't clap.
And what happened to Doge? They were talking about the $6,000 banner each. They rolled down at one of the maybe the Department of Labor in Washington D.C. It was this giant banner, 50 feet tall. They rolled it down. $6,000 each to praise Trump's labor numbers, which we're not really sure are accurate or not, but we're no one's really.
We're
I
pretty
know
sure
when
are inaccurate.
and we misrepresent slavery, but now that we've got clarification on that, they praised him. I don't think they praised him for that during this particular cabinet meeting. But what is it, guys, that just makes him so revered? And that's really the question: is what is it? Is it his direction, his adamant opposition to homosexuality? What is it? I don't understand it anymore. You can't pin the guy down on anything.
Well, I keep on telling you that it is less about his personality, which I think is a complete pulp fiction for most people, right? Um, and more about the fact that the historical adults in the room, and that's the establishment Democratic Party and the establishment Republican Party. So on the Republican side, McConnell, Mitt Romney, and those folks, and on the Democratic side, the Clintons, Obama, Biden. Okay, okay. So those people have lied so vigorously and betrayed so completely the very electorates that elected them that that Trump gets a pass on all his BS and all his relentless lying, because the adults have been doing this for 30 years at least. And so as a result, he gets a pass on that. And the only thing that resonates is when he says the kind of things that no one else will say, which is things like the war in Iraq is the worst foreign policy debacle in history. We all know that's true, but according to Reagan's 11th commandment, Republicans don't criticize Republicans, but he said it anyway. You see, that's kind of stuff. When he talks about bringing the jobs back, which he's not going to bring the jobs back, but he's the only one talking about bringing the jobs back because globalization sent the jobs away, right? Right.
Well, hang on.
So
Let me unpack one thing you just said that's really important. It was Reagan's, I guess, rule that we don't criticize Republicans. So we just
Republicans
don't do that. Sort of like a mob
Yes.
rule. We don't sell each other
Yes.
out. And that
That's right.
all started. There was a judge, Judge Robert Bork, was nominated to the Supreme Court, the only judge
Yes.
not to be confirmed to the Supreme Court. And I remember George Bush nominated Harriet Miers. She never made it to the confirmation hearing. He pulled the nomination before she ever got to the Senate floor. So the only judge to never be appointed, never be confirmed to the Supreme Court was Robert Bork. And Bork became a word in the Webster Dictionary for defaming somebody's character. The definition of the word borking is defaming somebody's character. So we've done that. This is the point I'm trying to make. This is the point I'm landing at. We defame every political figure for good reason. One, for what they say or do, and they don't keep their promises. And and two, we want to know where they really stand. We grill them. But when it comes to Trump, he is the victim. He is the eternal victim. We're brutally assaulting him, unfairly assaulting him. And there are those people who revere him and say that is so. We are brutally assaulting this man. He is just trying to save America. And all we're doing is attacking his character and attacking his policy. And for good reason we're doing that. But why is he different than the rest has always been my question. Why do people defend him differently?
Well, here's the thing. Some people have the Teflon effect. Reagan had the Teflon effect, right? I mean, it didn't. So he does have a Teflon effect. He can say anything, as he said. I could walk down, what is it, Times Square and stuff like that, and shoot someone and stuff like that, and no one would care, right? Well, he has the Teflon effect, and I keep on saying it's because he does say certain things that most people consider true, right? That no other politician will say, and that gives him the pass for everything else. All the other ridiculous lies, like no one loves Jesus Christ more than Donald Trump. He could say the craziest things, and I guarantee you, after that 3 hour cabinet meeting, this is going to be his support for why he's the most loved president in U.S. history. Is because look at how his cabinet loves him. But the fact is that it is I suggest that you look to the bar that was set by the apparent adults in the room. I mean, why is the Democratic Party in disarray today? It's because they have absolutely no credibility. None. Right. They have absolutely sold out the working class for Wall Street. They've absolutely so I mean, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, when the adults in the room have proven to be catastrophic liars. Right, right. Of course, the clown car comes up, and all he has to do is say a few things that everyone resonates with, and oh, okay, finally someone is talking to me and telling me the truth. Right. Yeah. Despite the fact that 98% or 99% of everything he says is still BS. Right. At least 1% is the truth. Because what is the 1%? What was Biden's 1% truth? The genocide in Gaza, the war in Ukraine,
But hang on, let's
or
let everybody.
Bidenomics, the economics of the country. Remember Bidenomics? I mean, we were doing great, our booming economy.
Let's
How
say
many?
this though. Let me ask everyone that one question. Why is it that Trump is revered like he is? Like I was just telling Kevin, I'm like, we've assaulted, I think maybe Charlie will remember, we've assaulted the character of public figures over and over again. And for good reason. We want to know who they are. We want to know if they really belong in the positions they're in. And we want to challenge their policies. We want to know if that's what's best for America. So my question is to Charlie or Beth that why is it that when we challenge Trump, why is he the victim? Now, Kevin said it's because, like he said, we've been lied to by every politician, and Trump may have a better average of keeping his word. He kept his word on gays in the military, whereas in contrast, looking at Bill Clinton, he made a promise, and then he came up with a bullshit concession. No, don't ask, don't tell. Whereas Trump said, I'm throwing all the gays out, and he hired a defense secretary who literally wrote a book about nearly his homophobia in the military, and this guy threw all the gays out. So is it because he keeps his word on these policies, or why is he revered? Charlie, Beth, can anybody tell me?
Well, look at his entire political aura, his whole thing that he came on his victimhood, right? So, I mean, if that is the key, the core part of your belief system and what you ran on, I assume you're going to be pretty good at it. and he's very good at it. And I think that is tied in. It's linked to why his people, the MAGA people, are so cult-like committed to him. It's that I think that's the common thing. It's the common strain is this victim, this victimhood. It's that we're all being screwed, and it's easy to jump on that train and feel a part of it. And it gives a lot of people a sense of belonging to be part of this, ridiculous, as it sounds a lot of the time, this group of people who feel, that they're getting screwed. I mean, it's very vague, basic thing, but it is true.
But we're all getting screwed, right? If we're all getting screwed royally by every politician that's ever been elected, I can't really think of any politician that's ever kept his word, that hasn't gone into public service for self-gain, that hasn't sold out to some special interest for whatever reason, whether it's campaign funds or whether it's his own self-enrichment. But if we're all getting screwed, and really, I'm going to go over the definition of this: leveling up. It's the strengths, identifying weaknesses, and breaking through barriers that hold you back. Those are our politicians that are holding us back. There's been a conscious effort by both parties to see to it that there's an enormous underclass. But Trump has prevailed above that shadow of a doubt. Trump is the god of all politicians in some people's eyes. He may be the next Jesus Christ for all we know in some people's eyes. And I keep asking that question. How do we change that? How do we change that? Beth, is there any way to convince more than just us and the people around us that maybe it's not that Trump's bad, maybe it's not that they're all bad? Is there somebody good in the room?
Well, let me just add this too, that this is where I'm confused. So this is not going to give you an answer. I'll just share in
my confusion.
Yeah, is that I cannot understand anyone who could watch that cabinet meeting and not just come away in complete and utter disbelief and disgust. I don't know how a person could be at the receiving end of that type of obsequium for hours at a time. And
3 hours and 7 minutes.
Be embarrassed. I mean, it's embarrassing to watch it as a third party. I can't imagine that the type of mindset you must have to be in the receiving end of that and think, this is good. I like this. But clearly, he does enjoy it. And clearly, the MAGA base, they do not have the reaction that I have. I can't explain that. It seems so obvious to me. Like it's like satire. It really is like satire.
Like it's reality TV.
Like, what if we were North Korea? I mean, you couldn't play it any better than they do. And each one who starts talking, your jaw hits the floor like, oh my God, how did this come to be? But
so that's
millions of people don't agree with me.
I started out with just that. I said, Charlie, in our text, when we were all talking about getting together, talked about the cabinet meeting. I said, it's like I felt like it was like Kim Jong-un when he walked into a North Korean Politburo, when they're all clapping, like Beth said, trained SEALs. And here's this guy that sends his soldiers to Russia to help Russia and tells them, if you're captured, we're going to kill your family. And he's the greatest. If our soldiers are captured, he's going to kill us. That's the policy we should be in place. We shouldn't be letting our soldiers soldiers get captured. And to the point where one North Korean soldier, literally, and I use this example because I feel like some people would do this for Trump. He felt like he did get captured, so he ran full speed into a concrete bar trying to kill himself. And ultimately, and then he was retrieved alive, and they found parasites in his body, and then he was malnutritioned. And it's like this North Korean military reveres this leader too. And is that the same feeling that some people have for Trump? I just don't understand it anymore.
Well, that's the thing.
What do you think?
Even the people in the cabinet, do they really, it's like, do they really feel that way? Or is this just all performative? I can't tell anymore.
But how do you live with yourself? How do you go home to your family? You're literally on the staff there was Doge, and I just said at the Department of Labor, they rolled out $6,000 banners. They're 50 feet tall of Trump. $6,000. There's two of them. So $12,000 of taxpayer money crapped down the tubes on a banner in front of the Department of Labor. And there was outrage when Donald Rumsfeld retired. He ordered a $45,000 self-painted portrait of himself for the Defense Department. I mean, this is before Doge. This is before he ever thought of the government efficiency. And how do you spend 45 grand when you've got starving children right in the same neighborhood as the Pentagon? How do you spend 45 grand on a portrait of your idiot self? You were the worst defense secretary in the world. You were the biggest clown shoes in the world. You argued with a soldier that said, "Why did you send us into war without the equipment we need?" And you literally answered, "We go to war with what we have." We had the equipment. You didn't send it in. Moron, you ran out of fuel and spare parts on the way over.
Yeah, but just remember, Coach, that those are the adults in the room. That's the establishment Republican Party you're talking about with Rumsfeld and Bush. But let's answer your question, though. We really need to hear Beth's opinion. Beth, do you want to jump in or? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, now. Oh,
I don't hear.
no, we can't hear you, Beth.
Oh,
You're not
can you
on
hear me
mute
now?
Yeah, we
Yes,
got you.
can. Now-
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So the only opinion I have about Trump getting away with lies is people made it okay to be a politician and be a liar. Like the excuse that, we brought up how many times Trump had lied in his first administration. It was like 133,000 or something. But then when you say that to somebody who's a Trump supporter, they're like, well, every politician lies. And so we made it okay. We gave everybody a pass for lying, when really we should all be pissed about being lied to. Nobody wants to be lied to, but they made it okay because everybody does it. How you get that to change? It will never change.
It'll never change, right?
Never change. Mm-mm.
And I feel like sometimes there's this glimmer of hope. I say it sadly. I say it with all sorts of with a strained heart. But he's in on the Epstein thing, and his supporters are saying, "You promised to unveil the Epstein files," and he literally orders his attorney general to vet the files to make sure he doesn't get discolored in the release of these information. And it's okay now because he released the information. So you're not just lying. It's gotten a little worse than just lying, but it's okay because he kept his promise. He uncovered the deep state of the files of the Epstein files, but you're in those files, and you're redacting your name thousands of times from those files before you release what you promised to release in whole, and that's okay.
A
Well,
couple of things.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
think the reason why Trump absolutely loved that 3 hour nonsense, the cabinet meeting, the praise fest for him, is because there is something hardwired in his DNA because of his experience as a business person and how he's never been accepted by the wealthy elite and stuff like that, that anything that drives his opposition crazy is something he enjoys. And he constantly, so much of the nonsense he puts out is performative, is intended to get the reaction we're getting. And so what he enjoys is that he knew that that broadcasting that 3 hour plus cabinet meeting where everyone was throwing praise on him. And the funny thing about it is world leaders do the same thing. Take a look. We just had the head of NATO and the European powers here in Washington, D.C. They had a meeting in probably the same conference room. And how did the NATO leaders, how did the Prime Minister of Great Britain, how did the President of France, how did the Chancellor of Germany, how did they talk to Trump? Go check it out because it's going to look like the cabinet meeting. Everyone knows that you could feed Trump's ego. And if you do that, you're going to get as favorable a treatment as you could possibly get from him, right? And the thing about it is, he knows that that drives everyone else crazy. And so, all I'm saying to you is, we all went to high school where there was that person whose life all they want to do is get a rise out of you. All they want to do is get a rise out of you. And I'm telling you, this is Donald Trump. He understands that people see him, that every time he opens his mouth, their head explodes, right? And he thrives on making their heads explode. Right? And so what I would suggest to you is don't react to everything he does. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's what he wants. He
But
takes
are
the
you
oxygen
still
out
an
of the
adamant
room.
supporter of Trump? That's my question. Kevin
No,
Howard.
Kevin Howard, I am an adamant support. Okay, what is beyond the nonsense, beyond the things that are just intended to drive us crazy, right?
Right. Past
What
that.
exists? I support Trump in trying to end the forever wars, right? You know, it is a circuitous process he's going through with Israel and Palestine. It is a circuitous process he's going through with Ukraine and stuff like that. But the fact that he recognized the actual root cause of the war in Ukraine, that it was NATO expansion, and that gives him a basis by which he can work with the Russians and stuff like that, I support that. I do support that. I support the idea that globalization has betrayed the American labor, the middle class and the working class. It's done the same across the global north. I don't support using radical tariffs policies that up 1 week, down 1 week. No, that's crazy. But what he's trying
So
to
let
do
me
is
let me let me
reverse
unpack a couple of
globalization. So I
Okay,
do
let me
support
unpack
that.
a couple of things. The tariffs have just been ruled that they're not legal. Now it may wind up. It is they've suppressed the ruling or whatever you call it. Held the ruling until October 18th so Trump can appeal it to the Supreme Court. But the fact of the matter is, you've literally got a Supreme Court justice who's big on tax law. I mean, basically divided the Obamacare ruling into three separate hearings, 2 hours each, when generally something gets a 45-minute stage time. The Obama and one was the penalty, and he called the penalty not a penalty, he called it a tax. So if John Roberts stands true to form and somewhere along the way reels in one more conservative, you're at the point now where the tariffs are done for. Now we could be heading into a constitutional crisis if he doesn't listen to the Supreme Court and doesn't tell his Treasury Department stop the tariffs. But if the tariffs are stopped, 90% of his approach as far as ending globalization is seized.
But Coach, here's the thing. Okay, from the very time we started talking about his tariffs back in February. Go back to the tape, folks. It's all in the YouTube links, right? Okay, I said his tariffs are not going to be made legal. The Supreme Court will overturn them as unconstitutional because the emergency conditions don't exist to justify him circumventing the Congress. In order for his tariffs to go permanent, the Congress is going to have to pass it. But Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, and Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut, want to impose massive tariffs on anyone who's buying Russian oil. Okay. And they say they have 80 votes to do it. He's going to negotiate the deal that legislation basically allows him to impose high tariffs on any country at the discretion of the president. So that's going to be that compromise. He's going to get the Congress to pass. That's what the U.S. Court of Appeals said in their decision. It's the Congress who has to pass it. So I'm telling you, it's not over. They're going to just give him congressional.
No, because you have to realize something too, that the timeline isn't there for him. We could actually shellac him in the midterms. We could take back the Senate.
Oh no, he's going to do it again. Take note. The Congress will be back. He has until October to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Blumenthal, as soon as Congress comes back, Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham will ramp up their legislation. They already have it. They already say they have the votes, and he will get it passed out of the House. So the issue is now he has the reason because he is going to lose. He will lose going to the Supreme Court. So therefore, this session of Congress, they're coming out of recession. He will get the legislation passed. That's the strategy, right? But I said this in the beginning, and all I'm saying is about that. So these are the things that I actually support. Let's look at ICE and the Gestapo that ICE has become. Okay, do I support dragging people out of their homes and some of that? No, but what I do support, and most Americans support, is that the immigration policy under the Biden administration that allowed an additional 8 to 10 million undocumented people in the United States in the 4 years that preceded this president, they don't support that, right? And so I do support us having to rein in the amount of undocumented people in the country and seal the border and have a credible immigration policy that serves America, right? Most Americans agree with that. So that's the truth of the matter. I just don't agree with Trumpian tactics to go about it.
So Beth, jump in or Charlie, Beth, jump in. We're talking about immigration now. We moved past the tariffs. We're going to see what happens with that. We're going to get to the midterms. We're going to see if he puts a hold on the midterms. We've heard all that. We're going to have to call that as it comes. Let's talk about immigration. We own it. Beth once said it. Quote, we own it. We own Biden's policies on the border. We've claimed, I've at least agreed he didn't do the right thing on the border. He was trying to appeal to the progressives. He decided it's the only way he can win re-election is if he has the progressives in his wing. He failed at the border. Supposedly, Trump's retrieving those people that allegedly came through the border on Biden's watch. I don't see that being what's happening. I just see this massive assault on good people, period.
Well, we've already seen that farmers are struggling. I mean, the first term Trump was in, farmers were struggling. Like, you can only bring down the economy so much before people, everyday people, not just farmers or corporates or everyday people will start feeling the pain. But their changes were strategic, meaning they made some of these things where people will really feel the pain is after the midterms. So I don't think we've gotten there yet. I think people are just now, they still have a safety net, like their savings or credit cards or something, but that's going to be gone. You can only live off that for so long. And people are really going to start feeling the pinch. And then are we going to be past the midterms by that point? I don't know, probably. But I just feel like you can't go so long without, it crumbling down. Immigration is affecting every aspect of everyday life.
And Charlie, what do you think?
Could I ask Beth a question real quick? Hey, Beth,
Sure.
when you look at the landscape of the American public, right? Okay, what portion of the American public do you think still have credit card availability that they can live on or have savings that they can live on when 2/3 of the United States can't afford a $1,000 unexpected expense?
Well, it's hard for me to say because I live in a very small town. It's a rural area. It's in Virginia. And here, the average median income, I think, for this town is like 60 grand maybe, but you go back to Florida and in the small neighborhood I grew up in, I think the average median income is like 35,000. So we're talking it depends on who you're asking, really. The people that I know in Florida, they're really struggling. They're really we're talking about people who were on SNAP benefits who got cut off for whatever reason, or if they got a dollar raise, or I don't know. But I've been asked at least twice this month for someone to borrow money like that. It's been a very long time since I've had people coming out of the woodwork to borrow money. And I think just this month we had to put my dog's medications on credit card. It's been a long time since we've had to actually do that. I think there are still a significant portion of people who have those resources available, but they only go so far. I think the American credit card debt right now is equivalent to the nation's debt. So, but the economy is still doing pretty good. So banks are still willing to lend. It's like you can tell when we went into the recession the last time, banks and lenders, they started cutting off credit lines. Like if you would pay down your credit card, your credit would drop. You could sort of tell, yes, so you could sort of tell something was coming. And it was a big something. And I'm still shocked to this day that more people didn't pick up on those clues. They were still buying houses.
I remember that. That was like the first time that had ever happened to me where.
Yeah, it actually.
Years ago where where an established credit line was decreased for no reason, like for nothing that I had done.
Right.
Well, it's back. It's back. I'm telling you.
Well, they see the crisis on the horizon, and that's my point. Is, and when I talk about leveling up, that's the thing. People, when you think of the dynamic of a family, the average family can't afford $1,000 crisis. It means that's affecting your local handyman. That means that's affecting your Home Depot.
Yes.
That's in everybody's IRAs. That means it's affecting a lot of things. It's not just the fact that nobody's got $1,000 cash in their pocket to go to the OTB and play all day. This is a problem. And then again comes the reverement of a president that said he's going to fix this, and there's been no reason to believe he's done anything at all to fix it. Now they keep talking about, the other day I just read the $4 trillion big beautiful bill and how it's not sitting well with the American people. And the spokesperson to sell it to the American people is J.D. Vance. He's been appointed the guy. Now I just got to ask anybody, who thinks J.D. Vance should be even the spokesman of what kind of pizza 4 people should have for dinner? I mean, this is just hilarious to me.
Just Dance.
What do you think, Charlie? I want to hear Charlie. What are you saying, man?
No, the new name was that Newsom's new nickname for him. Just Dance Vance.
But so, I mean, I have mentioned this before that, in my opinion, when you look at the 77.3 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump last November, right? I mean, you are talking about a lot of these people live a Janis Joplin lyric. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. What I'm saying is the people who are hurting, those people have been hurting and have been hurting under Obama. They were hurting under Biden. They were hurting under W. And they were all promised how they were going to be helped, how they're going to be helped. No one helped them and stuff like that. And yeah, they're still hurting now under Trump. There's no question about it. But when you have nothing left to lose, the people who are squealing like pigs right now are the people who benefited from the last 30 years, the people who actually have savings, the people who actually have health care, the people who actually have, a capacity to take a vacation. We are going through a housing affordability crisis in America, the lowest percentage of home ownership, the lowest of capacity to afford a home, the highest contribution of rental payments when you rent because you can't afford to buy a home. Over 40% of people's take-home pay. So the economics for most Americans is horrible, has no safety net in it. Okay, this is people who have nothing left to lose. So if you want to know why they are not squealing every time Trump does something ridiculous, is because the people who put him in that position are the adults in the room. And he's the only alternative that our political system has given them. We could have given them Bernie Sanders, right? But no, we destroyed that opportunity. So he's the only alternative to the people who betrayed them in the first place. Okay.
Well, again, there's so much. This is just incredible, Kevin, we're hearing today, because it's not a supporter of Trump. It's a supporter of some sort of reality people are facing. And then yes. Trump comes to the table as, I'm the realist. I'm the straight talker. I'm the guy that's telling you like it is. Like he
Oh,
said, when you said the Janis Joplin song, one time in his first campaign for president, they said you've got to do better with the black vote. It's important. It is the vote that makes the difference. And he went to the black people and said, what do you got to lose? And it's not like that's not what they were looking for, that's not, but you know what, you were right. They said, you know what, this guy at least said it like it is. We haven't gotten nothing out of anybody in Washington. And this guy's just telling us, we probably won't get nothing out of him, but at least he's telling us this. This is straight talking guy.
Isn't it such a sad irony that these exact people, the ones so desperate that they voted for him, they are getting screwed the most. I mean, that
The most.
biggest single upward transfer of wealth in the history of this country in one bill, and they're going to lose their benefits, and they're going,
10 million people are going to lose their health insurance.
That is his base, and they will not understand it if they ever do. Some will never, ever blame him. It will not matter what happens to them. You can take away their SNAP. You can take away their. I'm not saying all, but I'm saying there's definitely a part. You can take away. They will take away their SNAP. They will take away their health care. They will transfer all this money upward, and they will find a way to blame anyone. They'll blame other Republicans, maybe. They'll certainly blame Democrats. They'll blame presidents who've been dead for 10, 20 years. But they'll never.
They will never blame it on Trump.
He just nailed it.
They will find a way to excuse him, and he will embrace that, and he will give them those reasons. And at this point, I think we've lived the MAGA world long enough to know that's the truth. That there is, of that 40%, there's probably 30% who fall in that category. Again, going right back to what he said about shooting someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue. I mean, that he got that part right. Mm-hmm. And it's going to happen. And, like I said, I just shake my head because, I'm very fortunate to have survived well through the previous, economic downturn, through the pandemic. I've just been lucky. But a lot of people have not. And like I said, I mean, just what's gone on in this first 6 months and with that bill, it's just hard to imagine. You don't need to be that politically savvy to see this, but they don't.
No, and they said, though, that with the Congress, I think it was the Senate Republican leader said rescissions are the problem. That right now we can't talk about the $4 trillion bill. It's what Trump's taking back. The rescissions are the problem. So they're good at creating a sense of comfort when they have a concern, but they don't. He is the guy that is screwing them royally, and they don't have to worry about that because, like Charlie said, they don't even realize he's the problem. They're convinced he's not the problem. They're still convinced he's the solution. So,
again, I continue to maintain that it's certain key things that the people who support him, and I did vote for him, right, agree with. They agree with the fact that the immigration policy of the predecessor administration had gotten way out of control, that we opened the border like a sieve. They agree with that. They agree that globalization has abandoned them, has betrayed them, and that the notion of the tariffs is to get the US based multinational corporations to bring their manufacturing back to the United States. They know that's not going to happen overnight. Okay. They agree with the fact
that's never going to happen.
Well, whether it ever happens or not, because it's never happened before. You're right. Right. They agree with the fact that we have been at war. And basically, and who makes up the military? Working class people, right? Okay, we have been at war since 1992 somewhere in the world, right? And the only ones that benefit is the military industrial complex. That's BlackRock, who owns most of the military industrial complex. That's extreme wealth, right? That it's not random. It's not random that we only had $4 trillion of debt in 1992 when Bill Clinton took office, right? And that we have $37 trillion in debt today, and that we've been at war that entire time, and that the only people who've benefited from it is extreme wealth, that we have created the greatest billionaire class ever. And that the average person is absolutely sucking wind, is doing worse than they were doing in the 80s, is doing worse than they were doing in the 70s, is doing worse than they were doing in the 60s. Okay, this is what people know. Okay. If you want a difference, if you want them to not support Trump, then when we have power, we need to help them. Biden demonstrated complete contempt for the working class in this country, right?
Well,
Such
that's
as,
Such
ex-
as,
yes.
such as people would talk about how difficult it is. You remember his propaganda nonsense, Bidenomics? Remember that argument? It was so rejected that he had to stop saying it. But the fact is, that's what they tried to sell the American public.
No,
That this
I'm
is
asking
that the
you
problem with the economy is that they don't
specifically.
understand. What do you mean specifically? Literally, the Democrats were saying in the middle of the Biden administration that this was the greatest economy ever and stuff like that, that he had created more jobs than anyone. And yet what people were experiencing in their lives was that you had 12% of the country who were food insecure. You had, again, they brought us inflation. Inflation wasn't a thing. For how many administrations did we have inflation? We had inflation at 2%?
Well, we
Okay.
talked about COVID inflation.
Oh,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes, you could. Hey, if it wasn't for bad luck, maybe Biden would have no luck at all. But I can tell you this much: if you are the president and inflation blows up, you have a responsibility to do something. And what
Well,
he did
well,
was
I guess.
he blamed the American public. He said that they didn't understand.
Well, it
I
was
mean,
our.
go
I
back.
mean,
Go back to the tape.
the inflation was caused by all the spending that all the stimulus payments. When you're spending more into the economy, inflation goes up, supply and demand. However, at least he didn't fire the statisticians who said, "Hey, shit's bad."
People don't care about that. The government who betrayed them over the last 30 years, they don't care that thousands of them got fired. Good. Now, welcome to
No, I'm
their
talking about
party. No, I just want you to understand. You're talking about the statistics. They don't care whether the labor statistics were accurately done. When, oh, by the way, between Clinton and the W administration, they already manipulated the unemployment data and stuff like that to discount how many people didn't have jobs and stuff like that. So please spare me, the American public, the people who you're talking about, the 77 million people who voted for Trump, could care less about that.
Well,
no, they could because they voted for Trump specifically for that reason. They were struggling, and Trump promised to lower prices, bring down inflation.
Yes, no one expected that to happen. Just like no one expected him to end the war in Ukraine in one day.
No, I did expect.
They expected him. No. He said that. That's what marketing.
No, I thought he had a connection with Putin. I thought he had an agreement.
Hello. That is what marketing does. Marketing.
Do you believe that people still believe
turn on
that
any commercial? Turn on any commercial. Turn on your TV and watch any commercial. The way marketing speaks, the way we get inundated all the time, the way we get sold all the time is everything is the best ever. Everything is going to save you from. You're going to be right. Okay, right. No one, but that's white noise to most people. What I'm saying. Okay. Okay. So I want to show you. This is the demographic voting trends that support that for Donald Trump. Because until you wrap your brain around that he represents America, okay? I have the voting trends for 2016, 2020, and 2024 presidential elections. And I can tell you, amongst men, amongst women, amongst whites, amongst Hispanics, amongst blacks, amongst Asians, amongst voters 18 to 24, 24 to 29, 33 to 30 to 44, 45 to 64, and above 65. Trump has gained more of those voters every time through 2024 today, right? And except with the exception that people above 65, right? They supported him 52% in 2016.
Right, which that's what
52% in 2020, and they dropped to 50% in 2024. But everyone, women, right? Women support went from 41% in 2016 to 42% in 2020 to 45% in 2024, right? Men up from 52% in 2016 to 55% in 2024. Hispanics
I think there's a
46% from 28%. Blacks
that
up from 13% from 8% to 13%. Asians
Understood.
up from 27% to 54%. This is cutting across the entire demographics of the nation. Young people, ethnics, men, women, all of them are trending his way. Why? Because the adults in the room have betrayed them. And
Well, here's
until we
my
wrap our
I
brain
think
around that reality, you will understand why he gets the support he does.
well, let me ask a question now because I don't understand why he gets the support he does. I agree with Beth. He made promises he couldn't possibly keep. I did believe he did have a certain connection with Putin and certain agreement, even on the sidebar, that he would end the war in Ukraine. I thought he had a certain connection with Netanyahu, that he could at least tame some of his aggression. Period. I call Netanyahu's actions aggression. There is no reason to believe it's self-defense anymore. It's just blatant disdain for the Palestinian people and aggression. I'll
And
call it what
genocide
it
is what
is.
it is.
Genocide.
Yes,
So
but
I
it's
thought there was some
Biden's
so I
genocide,
believe
right?
that. I wouldn't have voted for him on those beliefs because I also believed it was naive to believe it, but I wouldn't have voted. Okay, here's my big question now. We're in the midterms. Trump doesn't suspend them because it could really squash a lot of
He's
what's
not
going on.
suspending
No,
them.
I know.
Stop.
I'm saying. So we're in the midterms, and how do Democrats they get back the keys to some of the family cars? How do Democrats finally convince them we are the party that is not hell bent on running the family car in the ditch? Because all we've ever seen is both parties running the family car in
So
the ditch.
didn't we learn really from this last election, though? I see all this concern, and if you're really a hardcore Democrat, which I don't consider myself, I do consider myself a Democrat because of the alternative. And I feel like you got to
By default, the same as
yeah,
me.
well, you got to choose one party because anything else
That's all there
is
is.
a waste of time. But I think we've shown in that last election that that it doesn't really matter what you can. If you're unhappy enough about what's going on in your life, you'll just vote out whoever's there, regardless of the alternative, because he did not make a even decent pitch as a good alternative in this last election. It was just an alternative, and people were so unhappy with what was going on in their lives, particularly inflation, which was particularly tied, obviously, to the pandemic. But so I think you're going to see the same thing in the midterms. I don't think the Democrats would go in there, way underwater and still blow it out in the midterms just because people are that unhappy, and that's how they vote in midterms. And you got to remember too, also midterms is a totally different electorate, right? You have much more politically involved people. A lot of people and a lot of his base don't even think about the midterms. They don't come out until it's an election and he's the name on the ticket.
Right.
So I think for that reason, I don't think there's anything that's going to stop the Democrats from overwhelmingly taking a big chunk of the House back, and possibly the Senate.
And if we take back the Senate, we've got something to really hope for, that we cannot nominate lunatic judges. We can seize that moment at least.
Yeah, but they'll find a way to fuck it up anyway.
But let me say, when you talk about inflation, when you just throw that word out there, inflation, the driving force of what put the Nazis in power in Germany, inflation is an issue that really gets to the goat of people's, that really gets to their heart.
It's daily. You go to the red. You
there is no one key driver anyone can tell me that was any more the reason Nazis came to power than inflation. It was not hate. It was inflation. It was a feeling that I can't feed my family tomorrow.
Yeah, well, as long as we remember that in the 1920s, it was the moderates who ran Germany, and they failed to deliver for their people.
Right.
And that opened the door for the National Socialists, the Nazis. Absolutely. So if you want to continue with that analogy, it was in March of 2023 that inflation peaked at 9.1%.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Right. So let us understand. And who was the president of the United States? And again, where were the programs to help people in that context? Oh, no. Like I said, so here we are. Right. So, but let's go back to what Charlie said, because maybe I am missing something. Right. Maybe I'm missing something about how the Democratic Party is perceived. Can someone do a data analysis to help me understand how there is even one shining star in the Democratic Party that seems to have deep resonance across, that could change the Congress of the United States, right? Gavin Newsom is a joke in his own
I
state.
agree.
Oh no,
I don't like
Gavin.
that.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, no, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying how he's perceived. I mean, the idea,
I don't want
he's
Gavin
not
Newsom to
popular in
be the. I don't want
California.
Gavin Newsom to be the voice piece of the Democratic Party, but if he is, I will support him 100% because what Charlie said
Sure.
is, I'm done with what's
Yes.
going on now.
Blue
But
no
my
matter
concern
who,
is,
but beyond the
my
blue no
concern
matter
is,
who, coach.
my concern is just like you said. Can we finally take back control of the family car? And really put it on a lane that matters to everybody. And if we could, how could it be the Democrats that do it? Because frankly, I don't see either party having any interest in doing it. And I also see both parties colluding in certain things to make sure it doesn't happen. But
Yes.
somehow, some way, the American people got to come to the realization and I think it's Josh Shapiro who's sort of connected with Pennsylvania and the way he leads as governor. I think I don't really care for Gavin Newsom's approach.
He's fighting.
He's
Gavin has come
fighting
out
Trump,
swinging.
but and I like it, and I'm
Yes,
glad.
and I
do
like
too.
it.
I
I
love
love
it.
California is
He
fighting.
gained
Yes.
a lot of credibility in my eyes when he said, "You want to redistrict Texas? We're going to redistrict California," and sort of squashed the idea of redistricting.
Yes.
Because it was only Trump that thought if we redistrict Texas, we can keep the House. No, asshole. There's other options for us too. So Gavin Newsom came out and presented that as, hey. We got options. And kudos to him. Let him be the guy that runs for president. But he also needs to massage his approach. We are not a socialist country. There are a lot of American people that still want to really achieve a lot in America and don't necessarily want just a one-bedroom apartment for a family of 5. And if you think Andrea Ocasio-Cortez is living in a tiny apartment, she's got so much contentious feeling for her in her own district because she's flying around on private jets, and they're all saying, "Look, you're essentially a socialist. We can't even get a ticket on Spirit, and you're flying around already thumping, thinking you could be the next presidential candidate. We haven't seen you in a community meeting in 6 months, and when you finally show up, you stood here for 10 minutes and then went to some fine dinner across the street." And listen, guys, we started late. And I promised my family I would barbecue for them, so I got to go. I got to cut it short today. Do you guys want to continue talking for a little bit, or?
We could round it up, but that's okay. So let's have a rapid around the horn takeaway from today's conversation, so that Coach, you can go and grill. He's getting the orders in, huh, Beth? He's getting the.
Okay, we're not grilling apparently. Okay. Okay.
So we have a little bit more time, Coach.
We got more time.
Okay.
I don't need Trippy.
Yeah.
That was my wife. I don't know if anybody saw her.
So
I'd love to see her, but go ahead.
Let's bring her in. Exactly, Coach.
She's in her pajamas. I'm going to bring her in one day because she comes from Argentina. She knows all about this stuff.
Yeah. So, okay, right. So Coach, you're saying that you don't see the adults in the room, either of the establishment parts of the Republican or the Democratic Party, particularly the Democratic Party, necessarily stepping up to help the American people.
No,
that's what it sounds like you say.
I see them doing the exact opposite. I see them.
Right.
I see them, and I see them in bed together on that. I see them very convicted to the idea of an enormous underclass. We are very privileged. Yeah. We kind of slip past the goalie from both levels. We don't have the enormous burden of being billionaires, and we don't have the enormous burden of being extremely poor. We're okay. It's okay to come home to my house. I love my house. I'm not looking for a giant mansion. It's okay to drive my truck. It's okay. It's a cool truck. I mean, it's old, but it's okay. But and this is a fascination I've been having my whole life, and it came to light the other day because I hate to go into another tangent, but I'm going to go into one little. I'm going to start another talk, and it's just going to be focused on human trafficking. And it's going to be called Trip Talks. The other day, I talked to a priest that was a priest for 25 years. He was abused. He got into, it's an incredible conversation we got into. Long story short, I kind of told him, which the worst way I could put it was, I feel like human trafficking is the new shiny toy. It was the Catholic Church one. It was the Catholic Church. Then it was the Boy Scouts. Then it was Sandusky. And now it's Trump and Epstein files. We find these, there is a grooming for human trafficking that is the same part of that underclass that we're trying to groom. It's all a criminal syndicate of both parties working well together. And somehow we've got to break that mold.
Well, see, that's the thing, Coach. In my opinion, this is why I don't see the Democrats taking back the House, for example, or the Senate in the midterm elections, is because it is an inadequate incentive to get the American public to break with MAGA and MAHA, right? And if the alternative is not interested in actually helping them, the point of the support that is these threads of things that people do resonate with, that the economy actually is horrible under globalization for most people, that the immigration policy that's identified with the Democratic Party is horrible. Obama was much better, and unfortunately that's in the rearview mirror, right? And people identify with that. People identify with the fact that we do not need to continue all these wars. Of course, if Trump attacks Venezuela or whatever, we got warships down, then he's going to lose that credibility. These are the few threads of truth that holds his coalition together. And until you actually offer a better alternative, the lesser of the two evils is Trump. That's how bad the establishment is. Wrap your brain around that. The lesser of the two evils is actually Trump.
Well, we
No,
can
that
agree
may
to
be. I'm
disagree.
not
Be
so
better.
sure that is. I'm not
Be-
so sure I can wrap my brain around it because I don't know. The Trump thing is as I just started this episode with was the Trump thing is what just fascinates me. It's the anomaly of it all. It's the whole fact that you can't pin him down on anything. It's this guy that dodged a draft and then just talks terrible about a guy like John McCain, and there's no holding him accountable for those comments. It's literally his defense secretary says nobody knows how hard these pilots work to fly 37 hours to Iran, and I'm like, I know there was bathrooms on the plane. I know there was small refrigerators, college dorm refrigerators in the cockpit. I know. No one's saying that we're doubting the pilots. We're doubting President Trump's decision to fly the mission. And the fact of the matter is there was good reason for the doubt. They're now saying that Iran just dug out the first big tunnel and they're back in action, and that first facility that Trump supposedly used the bunker busting bombs to take it out. It was a bad decision.
Horrible decision. Yeah,
And
agree.
all we did was question it. And Trump is the victim because we questioned it. And according to his defense secretary, we're all evil people for questioning it. And people listen to this shit and go, he's right. You're picking on my guy, Donald Trump. Boo hoo.
Well,
Well, you know
Coach,
what? We pick on presidents and we pick on senators and we pick on representatives because that's what we do because we want to know they're doing the right thing. We're never getting them to do the right thing, but at least we're questioning it.
Coach, you're great at pointing out where Trump fails, and I don't disagree with that. But the backdrop, the comparison, the alternative. Here's a summary of the alternative. Okay, we elect Bill Clinton in 92 and 96, white working class, raised by a single mother, right? Poor boy gone good, right? Okay, and what does he do? He ratifies NAFTA. He does welfare reform. He does a Telecom Act of 96. He repeals Glass-Steagall. He actually does what Republicans had been dreaming about. He deregulates complex financial instruments and then turns around and sets up shop in Harlem so that Wall Street could pay him back by putting Hillary in the Senate. That's the Democratic Party. Social. Okay, he's supposed to be the compassionate conservative, right? He brings in the religious right because that's where he's supposed to come out of, and he makes them he makes a joke out of them to the point where David Quo returns to the community saying they have contempt for us. And then he turns around the worst fiscal record in history. He triples the debt in his 8 budgets. Okay, that's what
Talking
created the
about
Tea
Trump.
Party. Then
No,
no,
that
that's
was
W.
Bush.
Then
W.
Obama. Obama, yes, we can. He tells people, talking about him being a person of color, can be raised to the highest office in the country. And then he turns around and bails out Wall Street and holds no one accountable. And then lets 8
No,
million
That's
people
what
lose
no,
I'm not
Obama made
finished.
it clear.
No. 8 million people lost their homes. Pensioners lost 2/3 of their pensions.
I'm with you.
And stuff like that.
I'm
and
always, I can agree with you, but
all the excuses about what he couldn't do for them when he made sure AIG paid 100 cents on the dollar to the Wall Street who created the problem and forced us to have to bail
why
out
don't you
AIG.
critique
This
Trump
is Obama.
like that?
No. My point
No,
is
no, I'm asking
that
why you don't.
Beth, my point is, I voted for Walter Mondale in 1984 when I served for Reagan in the military. I voted for Clinton twice. I voted for Obama twice. I can tell you straight up the magnitude of betrayal that I speak to from my heart.
But you don't feel betrayed by Trump?
No. I
That's
feel
my
betrayed.
whole
I
point.
feel betrayed by the party I've supported all my life because the alternative to Trump, the non-establishment alternative to Trump was Bernie Sanders, and the Democratic Party emasculated him twice. So now we have Trump. He's the only alternative to the
Yeah.
party who's abandoning the working class for Wall Street. I mean,
There's a lot
Democrat.
There's a
That's
lot
what
of confusion because you make it sound like we worship Democrats.
We don't.
It's not. We don't. We hold people accountable. I think what the biggest question is, why, if we're still in the pickle that we're
they're
in,
worse than he
why-
is, Beth. They're worse. The Democrats are worse than Trump.
Give me
That's
a
the problem.
specific, because bailing out the banks, understood, except for we were told, or we were given the impression that we wouldn't have an economy the next day. We think bailing out the banks was bad and that losing our homes and stuff was bad, but we have no idea how bad it could have gotten. But here's my biggest thing is, why is it when a Democrat or anybody that's a liberal helps the American person, or like with the student loan debts, conservatives lose their minds?
Okay. They argued it. They defeated Biden in court to stop the bailout
all
of
I'm saying is,
debt.
First and foremost, exactly. This is an excellent example of what I'm talking about. Joe Biden was told, President Biden was advised that if you want to forgive student loan debt, you need to use the student loan authorization legislation from the 60s that grants the Department of Education the authority to suspend that debt and stuff like that, instead of the emergency authorities relied on for COVID. But instead, because he could care less about actually forgiving student loan debt, he just wanted to look like he was trying to do student loan debt. He based his authority on the emergency authorities that the president had, and that's the basis by which
that's the Supreme really Court, what upset you?
No,
that he didn't use the correct route.
What really upsets me is, that this is the nature of the betrayal. To project that you are trying to
his approach.
Can I
just thinking out loud.
To project that this is what you're trying to do, that you're trying to help people, but you use a methodology that's over and above what you were advised, the way that it could be effective.
You can see why we're confused, right?
No. The idea is that he didn't want to do it. He just wanted to look like he did it. Because he knew his authorities. And that's why
we're confused, because Trump is different. How?
No. My point is, Trump is the alternative to people who have said all the right things for so many years, and the net effect of what they do is the exact opposite. So yes, we can.
Trump is still the better alternative.
He is the better alternative because for all that all the lies that you might talk about, do not replace. I'm a poor boy from rural Arkansas, and I understand your pain. And then I turn around and betray you over and over again. That I am the compassionate conservative.
I feel like you're just proving. I feel like you're just reiterating what I've just said.
No. You don't understand how people.
Point to something that has done. Not what he said. What has he done?
Trump is 8 months into his administration. He will pay.
Almost
His electorate
5
will pay.
years.
His electorate will pay whatever price they will pay.
4.5 years. It's at 4.5 years. Not a half year. It was at 4.5 years.
Almost 5 years.
Again, he served in that first administration. You're right. Look at the voting trends again, because the difference between
so you're saying nothing to point to. There's only possibilities of things.
When do you come to grips with the fact that more women support him today than they did when he came down the escalator?
Well, the
more
support
blacks,
is
more Hispanics, more Asians, more young people, more old people. I mean, I'm saying, why?
Can I ask? That's not the question, though. The question was.
Of course, that's not the question.
Not what people feel, not what trends are. What has he done that you can say he's done this?
I keep on telling you, it is what the adults in the room have done. It is the fact that inflation blew up.
We're saying, can anybody pin down an accomplishment?
Yeah.
No, that is not the reason why people look. The history.
What has he done?
This is political science, okay? When you have a wrong track election, when most of the country thinks we're heading in the wrong direction, those elections are not decided by who has a better idea, who presents the better alternative. They become a referendum of the incumbent. Okay. And if the incumbent is the reason why we're heading in the wrong direction, they get thrown out. That's what happened to Kamala, because she refused to separate herself from Biden, and 70% of the country said America was heading in the wrong direction. That is not because Trump was the better alternative. That was because Biden was the lesser of two evils, was the greater of two evils. This is what I'm trying to tell you. You want specifics of why he was the greater of two evils when inflation spiked to 9% and he did nothing?
Something about Trump, not Biden or previous presidents. Something about Trump.
Ergo the anomaly. Why is he
I cannot say this enough. His support is a complete evisceration, a complete indictment of the establishment political parties. They are done. They have no credibility with most Americans. And the thing about it, well, until you give them another alternative, Trump is it. And the other alternatives that would have been much better from our perspective, because believe me, I am a progressive. Like I said, I voted for Mondale in '84.
Did you vote Republican in your district?
Don't disagree with anything you're saying. My question, and I believe it was Beth's question too, was can you point to anything that he has done?
Exactly. No, yes, exactly.
That question.
I can. The sole things that he has done, right, that I support. Okay, can I point to something and that people resonate with?
Please.
He followed through on his promise with RFK Jr., which, remember, we said you can't trust him, but he followed through on his promise, a centrist Democrat. He followed through on his promise with Elon Musk, a centrist Democrat, and let him come in and do Doge, right? He followed through on his promise to appoint Tulsi Gabbard, a centrist Democrat, okay, right, to run intelligence, right? He absolutely has tried to resolve the problem with the genocide in Gaza. He's the one who negotiated the actual only significant period of ceasefire. He's
after
tried
3 years, Israel had to agree to some partial.
He's tried over and over to end the war in Ukraine. Why isn't the war in Ukraine over? Because our European partners and the neocons and neoliberals in the United States are requiring Zelensky, who's their puppet, to fight on, even though they are losing badly to the Russians. That's what I'm saying. But he's tried. He's tried over and over and over and over again. So he's trying. That is what I do support. That is what most people do support, right? The effect of his tariff madness, right, is that it's driving capital crazy and not knowing what to do and having to seriously consider bringing those jobs back. Has it happened yet? No, of course. No one expected it to happen overnight. Right? But he's trying. He's actually doing it. He's actually making Wall Street crazy over how he's affecting international trade. So all I'm saying to you is he's dismantling the federal government. All those thousands of jobs that he fired
They
across the
just deemed
government.
his tariffs illegal.
Yes, I understand
Again.
that. We said in the first time we discussed the tariffs back in February, go back and check the tape. I said his tariffs will not be ruled constitutional. He can't do it on an emergency basis in the same way that Biden couldn't forgive student loans on an emergency basis. He needs
You
permanent
just used
legislation.
tariffs as a win. So
No,
I'm
what I'm
confused.
saying about his effect of using the tariffs the way he's done has driven capital and Wall Street crazy because he's severing and altering and manipulating the supply chains around the globe, right? This is causing companies to have to reconsider whether they do need to come back because they cannot operate under this environment in a profitable way. So all I'm saying to you is that he is making these efforts.
So
He's
let me say
doing
this.
this.
Let me say this, whether you agree with it or not, and then I think we're going to kind of, whether companies come back or not. The other day he made this grand statement: North Carolina start building furniture again because China can't send it as fast anymore. There's no one in North Carolina. There's an old saying: Americans want to wear Nikes, not sew Nikes. There's no one in North Carolina that's going to start building furniture again at the pace they did 30 years ago. There may be some startup shops. There may be some jobs. There's really not a lot of Americans that want to work in a hot warehouse putting together furniture and whatever you
I
call it,
disagree with you,
shellacking it or
Coach.
painting.
I
There's no
disagree with
reason
you.
to believe that those jobs are coming back. But here's the bigger issue about jobs that have gone. I'm gonna tell you, Apple just announced 6 months ago they're abandoning their self-driving car operation. They spent 10 years with thousands of employees laid off, billions of dollars spent on this initiative. Simultaneously, Warren Buffett buys JJ truck flight, whatever it's called, J flying truck stops. Before you know it, because one of the things about self-driving vehicles is they need sensors in the road. Before you know it, these truck stops, 1,000 in this country, are going to have sensors for self-driving tractor trailers. And they're going to be able to drive into these stops and at least park there, and then drivers will take over. We're going to lose thousands and thousands and millions possibly of high-paying truck driver jobs. They're going to go away due to technology. So when we talk about jobs going away to overseas China, like furniture building, it's irrelevant at the pace that jobs are going away to technology. It's a pointless argument that only Trump can make and sort of gain ground with the voters on. I don't believe for a minute they're going to start building furniture in North Carolina at the pace they did before. I don't believe for a minute that companies are going to come back from Mexico and put their factories back here and build cars back here. I don't see any of this happening. For the American people that believe it's going to happen, I always say websites deleted jobs. Years ago, you used to call a company and a person on the other end of the phone used to type in your name and phone number and your child's name and your child's birthday. Now you do it for the company for free because you go on their website. Those jobs went away. It had nothing to do with them going to India or China. You're doing the job for them for free. So this whole anomaly that Trump's going to bring back jobs from overseas and factories are coming back, to even allude to that, silly. It's not what happened to high-paying
Coach,
jobs.
you may be right. You may be right. But the dead air part of what you're saying is that these people have lost so
Hope.
much. They've lost hope in the adults in the room. The idea is, look, there are millions of Americans who would much rather make furniture, right, in a hot workroom and stuff like that than to sit in Home Depot trying to sell electronics for pennies on the dollar. Are you kidding me?
I'm not so sure about that, to be honest with you. Home Depot's an air-conditioned store that's paying $22 an hour.
Yeah, and no one can afford. Yeah, and you have to live on someone's couch to work there.
Well, you're not going to make more than $22 an hour building furniture in North Carolina.
You can if it's handcrafted. Yes, you can.
Not working for somebody. Possibly the owner will.
Look. I can't say this enough. Right? That skilled labor. If you're craftsmanship, that you're going to get paid more than retail. Stop it. Just stop
I
it.
hope so.
Okay.
I
No,
don't see it.
this is the problem with the service economy. We've relegated the working class to the service economy, which pays crap. Okay, compared to what we did when we had the textile industry and the manufacturing industry. I understand your argument about the impact of technology. People need us as a country, as a government, as a political leadership to reinvest in creating the opportunities where they could take care of themselves and their family. And the problem is the Democratic Party, the establishment parties, the Democratic Party, and the establishment Republicans have lost all credibility in that. So
Both parties.
until you have an alternative, until you offer something better, right? Absolutely, they're going to support Trump because at least he is saying, not only saying things, he's doing things. You may be right, he may fail. You may be right that it may not ultimately improve the lives of the people he voted for, but they can see what he's doing. And he is doing things, meaningful things, right? It's just that it's a massive thing when you have a $27 trillion economy to reverse globalization. Okay, that's something that takes years
You will
to
never
occur.
put that genie
Okay,
back in the
so
bottle.
No, that's what I just said. Beth
I
just
don't
said
think
it
it's
in
you may
three
be
simple
right.
words that I just said in 100-hour
Yes, you may be
recitation.
right,
It
but
does.
to the
Companies are buying up companies, and big business is
hell,
consuming what the little guy used to do, and then paying the little guy peanuts of what he used to make to do what he did for them. I mean, I'm not arguing. I'm not debating any of this, but Trump's not the guy. Now, both parties are in collusion on this effort to screw everybody other than themselves.
I agree.
But when you say, is there an alternative? There will be an alternative simply because there's enough discussion about the alternative that the alternative will happen.
where's the alternative? Because this
I
is what I'm
don't
talking
know
about.
where it
The
is.
Democratic Party has an opportunity if they want to solve this problem. The problem is that they don't.
They probably
Just
don't
like
want
you
to
said,
solve
Coach.
it.
I
But
think I agree.
What
I'm going to
I
pierce
find
that veil.
Yeah, well, what I find really interesting is the idea that you don't recognize that when people have been lied to as often as they have been, right? The only thing they have left is the person who actually is starting the process of doing any of the things he said. As I said, most Americans support closing the border and stopping
And we
I
own
agree with that.
that.
That's something you can point to. He did do that.
He did do
And I
it.
absolutely
right.
agree with
Most
that.
Americans
This is also what
agree
he's done.
with end
We are at a 16-year low for job growth. That is a fact. A 16-year low
Yes.
since he took office.
Yes.
So that's something else he's accomplished.
Yes, but here's the thing, Charlie. You're absolutely right. Okay,
And excoriated gay
Can
people from the military.
Can I respond to Charlie? Because he's absolutely right. In the interim, because of all the turbulence from the tariff policy, because of firing tens of thousands of federal employees, absolutely job growth has collapsed. Okay, this is not different than when the Fed in 81 raised interest rates 11% in 1 year. Okay, what do you think happened to jobs and inflation and things that year? But it led to the longest period of economic growth in US history. What I'm saying here is the thing about massive economic policy is in the short term, it can be bad. In the short term, as everyone is adjusting, there could be all types of displacement. You're absolutely right. But that does not mean the long term that's going to be the trend. The market will adjust once it sees that this is how it's going to be. That's what's going to play out with the tariffs. If the Supreme Court will rule by October that it's unconstitutional, and he will have to do Lindsey Graham and the Senator Blumenthal's bill of granting the president the right to impose severe tariffs for primarily on people who buy oil from Russia, but on anyone else. And that's where his tariffs then become permanent. His ability to do it. And the market then has to take them seriously. Right now, they're just waiting because it's trillions of dollars that have to move if we have to bring production back. These are things he's actually doing that the people who support him want.
I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing that people really see it that way. People want right now. They don't want in 10 years. They want
right now doesn't work, Beth. I mean,
Well,
people are
But
not stupid. People, I mean,
that is the whole premise that Trump was that he ran on was right now right now eggs, right now bacon, right now cost of
he's
electricity.
a
That's what he.
marketing guy.
Yeah, but you
He's a
know what?
marketing guy.
If we use that same
Because
logic with Biden or Obama or
they're
Clinton,
not.
no. If we used the same logic that you just used on all of these successes that Trump has had, and Biden and everybody just lied about their successes, we'd be sitting here talking about how Biden is so great, and you'd be saying, "Well, he lied about everything." I mean, like you can't say it's a success if we all can see and feel that it's we're still suffering. Like this is not helping us, and we can't afford to wait 10 years or 20
Well,
years.
okay. As far as I'm concerned, the fact that right now, as he has fluctuated tariffs up and down for different countries around the world, that has completely destabilized supply chains and frozen capital to figure out how do we play this game? The fact that that is causing economic strain right now is not surprising to me.
So we should give him a pass.
The polling, no, you cannot make fundamental change, macroeconomic change, without short-term costs. No free lunch. That is the reality. The fact that he's closed the border,
My
the
point
fact
being
that
is he
he's
did
that he is actually
he was
going
not.
after undocumented people in the country, right? The fact that we have
That's the
lawfare,
only
people,
win he can really
that
claim.
the Americans are
he claimed
defending
it.
themselves. Americans are defending themselves. Gavin Newsom in California is defending himself. That's the American system at work, right? That's not fascism. That's how it works, right? He's doing it. He's doing these things. The fact that he is negotiating directly with the Russians. I mean, the previous multiple administrations would not even talk to our enemies. How stupid is that? But okay, yeah, that we don't talk to our enemies. Diplomacy, the history of
Well,
diplomacy, we talk to our enemies, right?
I'm
The
gonna make
history
this
of the
point
Cold
because
War, we
when we
talk to
say
our enemies.
Right,
when we
so
say
now we applaud for them, roll out the red carpet, do a military flyover, and then they just make a laughing stock out of us, doing nothing that they agreed to.
well, I'm gonna say this.
Well,
I agree
well,
with
when
Charlie because the way he does business with
Basically the war since that complete debacle in Alaska, or if you're Trump, Russia.
Well, you
the
call it
way
a
he
debacle
does.
in Alaska, but here's the thing: the significance of being able to talk to the Russians, who, by the way, didn't start this war. We did.
Okay, but
And
hang on. Let's not
okay.
get
Wait,
into that.
wait.
Let's not get into that. But I will say this:
Yes.
as
Know
far
your
as
history, Beth.
as far as opening the
We're not going
window,
there.
as far as opening the window, who's done business with our enemies? Obama did business with Iran. He did it in a way that was accountability was at
Yes.
92%, and there
Yes.
is no accountability when it
And
comes to Russia, when it comes to Trump doing business with Russia. He goes into the room without even a translator because that's what Putin tells him to do. He doesn't speak Russian. Putin does speak English. He's at a complete compromising position because he's a moron. He does what Putin tells him to
okay.
do, and that is not the way
Uses
to do
NATO as an
business with our
excuse.
Well,
enemies. They have
again,
demanded he does not have a translator in the room when he does business with Putin. And he has agreed
okay.
to it, and no other president would ever have agreed to that. So if that's how you do business with our enemies, is by conceding to their every demand, that's not a good way to do business.
Coach, you need to clean your lens, brother, because more women, more Hispanics, more blacks, more young people have voted for a Republican than any Republican president since World War II. Okay. Why? Because they're all stupid, right? Because they all want to vote for an idiot.
No.
Because they
But
all
you were talking about
because they all
his
because we're all misogynist.
You were talking
Because we're
about
all
These are
his
conservative
he's
values.
not an idiot. See, this is the lens that you need to
idiot may have
come.
been the
Yeah,
bad word
this
to
is the
use,
this is
and
the
I
lens
take
Trump
it
is an
that
back.
idiot.
He's not an idiot. He's a
yeah, okay,
billionaire. He's
fine.
a
So the
businessman.
people
No,
who
no.
vote for
But
them
here's the thing:
they're just misanthropes. They're
to
just
revere his
stupid people.
negotiating
Right, okay.
gravitas when it comes to
No.
dealing with our enemies. The one who had that gravitas was Obama.
Oh,
He
really?
got
Oh, let's
Iran
go back to
to
the
agree to the JCPOA, the
how
joint.
did he? Yes, but okay, is it true, Coach, that according to the Iranian nuclear deal and stuff like that, who was the party that developed Iranian uranium? Because that was the linchpin of that agreement. Someone had to develop it so that it couldn't be used for a nuclear weapon. Who was that?
They were developing their own levels.
No, I know, but under the agreement they could not, because
under the agreement was the clause that any president could pull the deal if they felt they weren't fulfilling the deal, which is what
that's exactly. But they were fulfilling the deal.
That's how you negotiate with your enemies.
But here's the thing. They were, if they could not develop their own uranium, continue under the agreement to develop their own uranium, because there was no way to stop them.
Right.
Stop development. Someone had to. They gave their uranium to somebody. Who was the one who developed it and returned it back to them when it could only at a level that could only be used for nuclear energy?
The U.S.
No, Putin and Russia. By the way. Okay.
Which is what Trump has agreed. Which is what Trump has agreed to, is that they don't develop their own uranium. A third party has to develop it.
Yes, but I'm trying to show you.
And that was in the clause of the original agreement, that if any president felt. But the point is negotiation gravitas.
The point is the Russians are not our enemy. We have made them our enemy. They are not. They were our number one ally in nuclear nonproliferation. What do you mean? The Russians are not our enemy.
You applauded Trump's ability to negotiate with our enemy, and I'm just showing you the flaws in his negotiation
to meet skills. With our enemy, to actually talk to.
I didn't say without a translator.
I didn't say negotiate. I said talk. The
problem without a translator.
No. You look. You want to look. Talk to. Diplomacy requires you to talk to your enemies. Okay,
absolutely. Under an equal agreement.
Right.
Under an equal agreement.
And Obama.
It's an improvement from the craziness that led to the war in Ukraine. The Russians were trying to talk to us. They tried to. They reached out in December 2021. They asked Biden. They asked NATO. Let's have a conference on the security problem, on the question of Ukrainian security and the joining of NATO.
We got to continue this conversation.
Coach, we refuse to meet with them. That's the
because it was a non-negotiable.
What do you mean non-negotiable?
I can leave it run. I gotta go.
You cannot negotiate with Russia.
That's an idiotic thing to say.
Okay.
We negotiated with the Soviet Union.
Can we continue?
We negotiated. What do you mean? We can't negotiate with Russia.
2 weeks.
Because it's a lose-lose.
2 Sundays. We're going to continue this conversation. This has been incredible. This
has been guys, I'm out. Bye.
2 weeks. Everybody agree we could possibly do this in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Y'all take care.
Bye.